Behind the Dish is sponsored by DBAT. Check out dbat.net for baseball and softball products, franchise information, and to find a location near you. And now your host, John Piper.
John Piper here with another edition of Behind the Dish. Today's episode, I've got Hall of Fame podcaster and softball legend Gary Leland joining us. Welcome to the show, Gary.
Hey, thanks for having me, John. It's always exciting to be on another podcast, and especially when it's a sports podcast, and especially they talk about the diamond sport.
Yeah, when we talked about starting this, we talk about baseball and softball, and I just got into podcasting about a year ago, Gary. And for our audience, I'm going to be headed to Philadelphia, July 23rd, to a thing called the Podcast Movement. And it just so happens you were one of the founders of the Podcast Movement Conference. Is that right?
That is correct. This is our fifth year, I guess. We were in Dallas and Fort Worth and in Chicago and Anaheim. And this year we're in Philadelphia. It should be, I would assume we're going to have 2,500 people there. It's the largest podcasting conference in the world. And it's a good place to hone your craft. For people like me who've been doing this together for so long, it's kind of like going to a family reunion for a week. I see so many people I've known so long that are such good friends from this business of podcasting that I really do enjoy going.
And what's cool, Gary, is, I reached out. You do a great job on social media and online. So I reached out. There's a Facebook group that we're part of. And I said, hey, I've got a baseball, softball related podcast. I was just reaching out to the group in advance, say, hey, I'd like to connect with some people that are in the sports arena, the business. And your name kept popping up. And I said, well, I've got to connect with Gary Leland. And you were kind enough to reach back out to me and told me about your softball background. And I said, hey, instead of waiting until July 23rd to connect with Gary, let's try to get him on the show before we head out there. And here we are. Small world, isn't it?
Yep, it's a small world. I think there's a song that goes with that.
Yeah, I think it's a theme ride in Disney World.
Yes, it is. It's a terrible song. Yes, it is. Yeah, it's a small world. It's taken a long time for people from baseball and softball, especially softball, to get into this podcasting. I mean, I think I did it 10 years before anyone else even had a softball podcast. Now I see other people doing it, so it's nice. I'm glad to see it. I'm glad to see it growing. It's good for softball.
Gary, I had
good for podcasting in general.
I had Kevin Shelton on recently, and he was telling me that you guys used to go head to head back in the early 2000s. You were a coach of the Bombs, and he's been a longtime coach and founder of the Texas Glory. And like a lot of things you do in business, you told me off air you had a daughter that wanted to play softball, so you started coaching. You didn't know anything about it, and then you get in the softball business. Can you share with our audience how all that came about?
Yeah, I had a daughter that wanted to play softball, so back in '99, I guess, she was like really passionate about it, and she was on a team, and she never got to play. And so I made a team, which I guess is called Daddy Ball, but I was real upfront with everybody. I'm making a team so my kid can play. And I was real upfront with people. So I said, hey, I want my kid to be shortstop. I said, it's not going to happen. My daughter's going to be shortstop. That's why I'm doing the whole team. I mean, I was upfront about it. I don't care if people like it or not. That's the way it was. If you didn't like it, you didn't have to be on my team. But I was real straight with parents, and I was real straight with kids, and I feel like I'm a pretty quick learner. And my daughter got playing time that way. That was my only goal, was to get her playing time. And I think I told you earlier, we came in third place in our first tournament we ever played. And then that season, we had a good season. We won a lot. That was, I guess that was first year 12 and under. And then second year 12 and under, we had an amazing season. And we grew pretty fast, I guess. I think people that played for me liked playing for me because I was up front and I dealt with the kids in a proper manner. And I educated the kids. And everybody had to earn their spot on my team every season. everybody had to turn in their uniforms, and we would issue them back out. Because I pretty much felt like you could always improve your team by one player. So we would have tryouts every year, every season. And the kids would have to try out again. And we did real well. We came in, I think, maybe it was, I can't remember. It's so long ago. It was back in 2000. But maybe either second year 12 and under or second year 14 and under. I can't remember. We had more ASA points than anybody in the state of Texas. So we got pretty good pretty quick. We won 14 under U-Trip State and 15 under U-Trip State. I think in U-Trip State and 15 under U-Trip back then, we had 2 runs scored against us in the entire tournament. And that was because I let everybody play in positions they'd never played in, because we were annihilating everybody so bad. And the championship game, the team quit during the championship game.
Wow,
and,
you had some stellar athletes, no doubt.
We were shutting them. You know, I always help people up on third. If I'm not like running people in the ground. I'm not one of those people that's going to win 30 something to nothing. Yeah, I would hold them up at third, and they'd have to get 4 something. I'm not going to get out on purpose, but I'm not going to try to steal bases anymore once the game is definitely in my favor. So we got good quick, is all I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm that great of a coach, but I had good assistant coaches. You know, I found that if you have a really great player, like if you have a really great pitcher, there's really a good chance that there was back then that their dad was great at being a pitching coach. You know, because he knew pitching, because there weren't a lot of places to go take lessons from. You know, back in 2000, not like it is today. So most people learn pitching, watching, not even the internet, but buying videotapes, and then would teach their kid. And, they would be pitching coach because they were in charge of the best pitcher on the team. And you were lucky to have 2, and usually 2, you couldn't really get 3. You couldn't keep 3 happy back then, So we became pretty good, but I knew nothing much about it. When I started it, and I did it to my kid, and then my kid ended up, at Martin High School here in Arlington, 5A school, one of the largest schools at that time, one of the largest schools in the state. He was 4-year varsity, starter. So she became good, obviously, or she would have been a 4-year varsity starter. And she was decided, I was really kind of impressed, she decided not to play in college, because when a recruiter came by to talk to her, he told her what was involved in college, and she didn't want to play college. She did her whole life until she actually, in her sophomore year, talked to a college recruiter. And she said, "Dad, I don't want to not be in a sorority and be on the road all the time and do all that." And I said, "Well, you don't have to. We can afford to send you to college." So high school was the end of her softball career.
Well, Gary,
but I enjoyed it.
You were really good at putting the right people in the right places, whether it was a player or a coach. And I know that's transcended into your business career as well. And tell us a little bit about how you got in the softball business. You right after you started the team, I believe you started softballjunk.com.
Right. Well, I built my first website in '96, lelandwallpaper.com. It was like, I don't know that it was first, but it had to be one. Back in '96, if you did something, you were one of the first. So it was one of the first wallpaper websites. Everybody told me I was an idiot to do it, all the manufacturers, because people wouldn't buy wallpaper on the internet. People told me people wouldn't buy anything on the internet.
Yeah, you were definitely ahead of your time, Gary.
So I did that, and then I was wanting to get softball equipment, because I got to the point I had 4 teams, because all these people wanted to be associated. If you're a winner, people just want to be associated with you. And so I would let them coach a team, and they'd be part of the association. And I thought I could get equipment cheaper for my team, my parents. So I made this website called softballjunk.com, and it used the same shopping cart as Leland's Wallpaper. So when you went to check out, it said you were at Leland's Wallpaper. I mean, I wasn't putting a lot of time into it. But I thought if I made this website, people would buy stuff, would sell me stuff cheaper to sell on my website. And manufacturers wouldn't sell to me still. But back then they had distributors, because all the distributors, well, they had not been put out of business by the internet. They still existed at this time. So the manufacturers wouldn't sell to me, but they turned me on to distributors who sold at like 30% off of retail instead of 50 or 60% off of retail. And I started putting their stuff on there, and then, gosh, we were selling more and more. One month I looked, and I said, "Oh my gosh, we made $5,000 this month off this website we're not even working on." But anyway, we started really working on the website and ended up, I think the next month we did 10,000, next month 20,000, next month 30,000. It grew like that kind of numbers, once we started working with it, because we were the first softball website for girls. If you were a girl and you bought softball equipment back then, you bought it from a baseball website or a men's slow pitch website. I didn't know I was creating the first website ever that catered to girls' fast pitch softball. So, replicate what I did then today with softball, seeing how it's the first. It's a lot easier if you're the first of something and there's a lot of people wanting it. But, it wasn't, I didn't have a problem with it. Back then people sent checks in the mail. That was kind of weird when you think about it now. And we didn't want to have a store. I have a store in Arlington. We didn't want a store. It was just a warehouse. Didn't even have a sign up above it. And all these people would find our address and send the checks to, and these people would be knocking on the door, and we'd unlock the door and go, "Can we help you?" And they go, "Is there a softball store in here?" We didn't have a sign.
So then you had shoppers coming in, huh? You had to create a retail presence.
Yeah. So after we started doing like 30,000 a month out of the store, and we didn't have a sign. And I said, "Okay, everybody, we got to make this into a store. I mean, we're just doing too much business to be going out there unlocking it whenever we hear people knocking on the door," which was all the time. And so we just took everything out of the boxes and hung racks on the walls and put that racks up and made it into a store. Like, for instance, lots of people will be driving to Houston from, let's say, Kansas or something, and they'll stop by the store. It's the only stop they'll make in Dallas-Fort Worth is my store. This is a really good story. I had a guy, I've had a lot of this happen. People from the airport, they stopped at Dallas-Fort Worth and had a layover. While they had their layover, they come to the store. I've had people come from California, and they had a 5 or 6 hour layover when they come. But I had a guy last month who was flying to Argentina to Europe, and he had a 9-hour layover at the airport, and he came to the softball store and bought some bats. Yeah, well, during his layover, so he could take the bats with him to Europe.
That's amazing. That's a great story. And you're right there by the ballpark in Arlington. I know a lot of our listeners are based here in Texas, but we have them all over the country and in China. Right in the center of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So, a great market for softball. And Gary, how's the business changed over, the last really 18, 20 years that you've been in it? Really 20 plus years. Wow. Congratulations. What have some of the changes you've seen in the way girls buy online or come to their store?
Well, the biggest change is the manufacturers selling direct. They actually call on teams and give teams discounted prices that you can't afford to match and make a decent profit anymore. So the bat market sales are just dwindled to what they were. I mean, you got Wilson out there. I think DeMarini's got a contract with Kevin's team, Glory, and you can't blame him. He's now getting bats for maybe $175, $200 instead of $350.
And it's a good benefit for his players. The players get to buy at a better price for being part of the organization.
Right, but every big organization has that happening now. The manufacturers call in the organizations. So every bat sold to the organization is a bat that was taken off the market for a store. So that's the biggest change is manufacturers deciding that they need to cut out the stores and go direct. I mean, basically they made just as much money when they did the sell to the teams. They still got $150 for the bat. They just got it from me, and they didn't have to have a guy dealing with the team. So I really don't understand the logic of it because it's not like they're going, "Oh, my gosh, we just marked our margins up." They're selling basically to Kevin for what they sold to me. Plus they got to, keep up with the billing and order to another place and have a rep and stuff. So, but that's the biggest change.
Do you ever see a shift going back to where manufacturers realize that, hey, maybe that was a mistake and they should go back to that wholesale model?
No, I don't ever see that happening. I called this a long, long time ago. Anyone who really knows me, I've been saying this for years and years ago, before any manufacturer even had a website selling softball equipment or baseball equipment, that it would happen, that they would cut us all out. And that makes sense to me now. Because they can sell that bat, which they do on the website, and I'm going to use $350 for a number. They can sell that bat on a website and just ship it and sell it for $350, and they increase their profit margin on that bat by $100. So that makes sense to me. So you knew that was coming. I mean, that was a no-brainer. That would come. once you get the website up and running, you already got a shipping department. I mean,